Okay, it's 10 o'clock at night in Australia, and it's time to kick off for our fourth of 4 webinars on the physiology of triathlon. We've been through, first one was physiological requirements. The second webinar, we went through the testing, data management and physiological profiles. Last week, we looked at race course analysis. And this week, we are going to have a look at workout examples based on previous case studies and using athlete strengths and weaknesses. So today's a really interesting topic. We've got a few dates that we need to be aware of. November the 30th, everyone's work's due, but we'll get to that at the end of the webinar. I'd like to introduce Vincent, who is the boss of the webinar and knows a lot more than me. And let's get started, Vincent.
Thank you, Emma. I'm not the boss anywhere, so not even in my house. So, okay, welcome everybody. Let's let's begin with today's webinar about workouts and how to plan and structure the training based on the athlete needs. So we're gonna have a quick recap about last week's webinar where we discussed how important was to analyze the races and the courses where the athletes were going to race to, because that actually gave us a lot of valuable information about how the athlete is going to perform there and what kind of training we need to prescribe for them to have a successful race over there. So, and whenever it's possible, to proper select all those races or to proper set the calendar based on the athlete's characteristics. That doesn't necessarily mean we need to stick to the current characteristics of the athlete. That's one of the main reasons why we train, just to get better. But especially for those who are chasing points and going or whose aim is to go to the games, then finding out where or what competitions are those that best suit them will guarantee them a better result, and therefore more points to add on the qualification rankings. So we went through different tools and resources available that actually show us a lot of valuable information, valuable data that some years ago was not available. And I do believe nowadays we have too much data. I mean, and this is, as a coaches, it's hard to manage, because we definitely need to focus and pay attention to the numbers that really matters. Because I mean, for those that are in Training Peaks and Strava and all these kind of training platforms, you'll be bombed with a lot of info, which is kind of important, but it's not all about the data. There is more out there.
I think also looking at race courses, it's really important that everyone understands little areas where they can get cheap time. So, you know, doing transitions well, doing entries and exits well of the swim and the water and all that sort of stuff. How to ride a corner, which corners you don't have to brake on, which corners you can pedal through, where you can attack. Sometimes to attack in the toughest area of the course is going to be the most, have the most impact on the race. So also understanding that side of the race as well.
It's really important that you mentioned that, because I was in Valencia for the World Cup last weekend, and it called my attention on the post-race area where everybody's sharing the feedback about the race, how it went, etc. And I got some comments coming from athletes saying, I took this turn on the opposite side, and actually didn't allow me to sprint on the towards the finish line, because that entry was a little bit tricky, especially because they passed through the finish line on the right, but then there were still, like, if I'm correct, 3 turns. So taking it from the left from the right was shorter, longer, and a lot of athletes were regretting about the position they took on the run just before coming into the finish line. And to me, that the last week webinar just came to my mind, saying,
Yeah.
if
The
you
last
have,
K, you must know.
if you have this kind of comments at the end of the race, it's because you haven't done your workout, your homework properly. So it's after the race, there is nothing you can do, but before there are a lot of things that you can do. So today's webinar, it's going to be about prescribing exercise and to understand the role that energy systems plays on the process of training. And I would like to highlight here that often, especially the coaches that are coming from development countries, are more focused on the task itself. And by the task, I mean, like, I think we mentioned it already, like 10 times 1K race pace, 1 minute rest. That's the task. But okay, what is this task causing in the athlete's body? So how do you are training your energy systems based on this task? So to me, and from a physiological point of view, the body doesn't understand whether you are swimming, running, or cycling, or doing any other kind of sport. The body understands that there is a demand of energy, and this energy needs to be supplied no matter what you do. Then there is another area, which is the technique, and there is, okay, that's okay. But in terms of supplying this demand of energy, everything comes to a really simple but extremely complex point, that is the energy systems. And those energy systems have to be extremely well understood, because actually it's where all the, pretty much the entire physiology of a sport ends. It's the point where if there is no energy, there's no exercise. So that's, or there is no exercise at the intensity you would like to go. So long time ago, when I was at the uni, especially the physiology, when we were studying physiology, there was a huge misunderstanding, from pretty much all of the students were in regards with the energy systems, because the way it was explained, it seemed that you either using one energy system or another, but it was slightly, complicated to understand that there is not, it's not like water taps where you open one and then you close another one. So you have all of them functioning at the same time, but depending on the intensity and the duration of this stimulus, then there will be one or the other that will have more importance. So that's really, I think is key to understand prior prescribing any kind of workouts. So we added a book in the course, I think was on the pre-course week or the week one, where all these energy systems are deeply explained. And for those that still don't understand this graph at the way it's here, I would recommend you to research further, because unless you understand how the anaerobic system works, energy system I meant, then you won't be guaranteed 100% that everything you are prescribing has a goal, will have an effect, and therefore will benefit the athletes to get better. So everything will be like throwing around. We have a similarism, you said, in English, where you.
I think, and I think if people are getting confused or, I suppose the word's confused about which energy system you're in, you basically need to look at a race and say we take the run. And if you went out every day and said, right, to do well in triathlon, I've got to run a fast 10K. And so every day you went out and you ran a fast 10K, obviously you're not going to improve, because there's so much that goes on in that 10K in a race. So you need to be able to go fast, you need to be able to recover, you need to go fast on top of fast. And so all those little different things, all those different energy systems. And so you have to have the ability to train them and call on them at any point in the race. So I think that's what you're talking about, isn't it? It's all those energy systems, and they overlap. You might still be in that one and you're entering another. And so it's it's a schmozzle.
And once you run out of this energy, then your body needs certain time to fully recover or partially recover. So you need to understand that, because you won't be able to do a sprint all out 100% every 30 seconds. It's impossible, because there won't be this energy available for you to do such an effort. Okay? So you need to understand how long it will take to either be able to have this sort of energy, and after these 30 seconds, it might not be 100%, but it might be 80%, and therefore the speed at which you'll be performing this sprint won't be the same if you compare it to the first one.
Okay? Yeah, so, and also, if you look at the course and you do the course analysis properly, you can decide where you're going to make these moves, where you'll have the biggest impacts, because it's a finite amount of times you can do it.
Yeah, and coming back to last week example of TC, there was enough time for recovering after the sprints of each turn to properly do another one all out, pretty much, after each turn, because they were like long strides. Whereas if you attempt to do, a lot of sprints within 1 minute time, obviously there'll be ones, you'll reach a point where obviously you won't be able to do that.
And that's why people drop off packs in the bike. Exactly. Because they're all of a sudden, you've got to do so many and you're not trained for that. You've just got yourself in a bad position.
Exactly. And so the factors that determine the proportions of the energy system use are, as we already said, intensity, duration, and fitness level of the athlete. Because the fitter you will be, obviously, the more, the longer and the more intense exercises you'll be able to hold, to cope with. And that two terms, aerobic and anaerobic, was also something that creates a lot of confusion, I would say, and still people don't get very well what that means, because when it comes to the anaerobic threshold, actually it's more aerobic than anaerobic, and it creates a little bit of, all this terminology creates a little bit of confusion. So if you still don't, if you're still not 100% sure what everything means, you better further research, because otherwise, as I already said, you won't be 100% guaranteed that everything you are prescribing to your athletes, it's what they actually need, or you're gonna get the effects that you are looking for. Okay. So all the energy systems comes into, if we put them in a different format, everything comes to the training zones, and that's why we do the testing in order to identify the athlete's strength, weaknesses. But from this information that we are gathering, we can also set the training zones, and the training zones are just the energy systems. As it might sound a little bit like a stupid, but is how it is. So every time you are doing an exercise based on intensity and duration, what you're trying to train is the supply of energy through this energy system itself. Okay, so understanding the percentages of, especially if you're not testing all the physiological parameters, like you only have access to indirect VO2 max through the test we seen 2 weeks ago, then okay, you need to estimate them. But if we have a look on the first column on the left, we have the two main energy systems, the aerobic and the anaerobic. So we split them in two, so it makes more sense for you. So although in the aerobic, zone 3 says anaerobic threshold, please bear in mind that it's only a terminology, but it's more aerobic than anaerobic. Okay, so I do apologize from being also from coming from the academic world, because it creates a lot of misunderstandings, and especially if you don't read further about this topic, then you just get lost. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so you have the name of the training zones here. You can see also, and we set 7 there. You can have 8, 9, you name them. I mean, there is no good or bad names on training zones, as long as you know what you are training, what kind of energy system you are trying to develop, and most important, your athletes also understands what is this about.
Can we also note number of reps, that you don't have to do the most number of reps? That is not the goal of the whole thing.
Exactly.
40 reps of 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's well, that table is adapted from the from a book from Tudor Bompa, which I think it's we added a section with a lot of references, so for you to have a further read, and many papers, articles, and books. I think it's a good summary of all the energy systems and how they could be developed. And let's just put it in this way. If you want to develop maximum oxygen consumption, so the VO2 max, okay, then the intensity have to be 100% of the VO2 max. So there was a question raised a couple of webinars ago where somebody asked, okay, what's the 100% of VO2 max? Okay, 100%, because it's VO2 max. If you ask me, okay, what's the percentage of VO2 max compared with the neuromuscular power? Okay, then there will be a different percentage. But VO2 max is the max, is 100%. And if you prescribe a set that is longer than 6 minutes, okay, might help developing this this energy system. But I highly recommend you to try it first, to identify your VO2 max zone, and then go all out for 8 minutes. Have a little rest, like the ratio here is 1:1. So meaning, I don't know if I have a typo there, but it's 1:1. Meaning if you exercise for 6 minutes, the recovery time have to be 6 minutes. And do another attempt and see how you feel. Okay, so it's also good to experience in your own body what you're gonna ask the athletes to do. But unless you follow those principles about duration, intensity, and rest interval, the ratio, then once again you won't be 100% sure that you are developing the VO2 max. And then you're gonna do the test again. VO2 max hasn't been improved, and you will wonder, what happened. Okay, so what happened is what you prescribed was not aimed to develop what you were looking for, because you either missed it on the duration, was too long, or was too short, or the intensity was not accurate. So that's why I'm coming from a scientific background. So to me, if I don't see numbers, I don't have anything to back up my decisions. I need to know the why I'm doing this, and based on what. So for those that don't measure anything, they don't keep a track on the workout intensity, and it's all about feelings and this spiritual things about going out and do what you have to do. And okay, but what do you need to do? Unless you have you keep a track on what has been done, you cannot be 100% sure and guaranteed that what you wanted to develop is going to be developed. I'm not saying it's good, it's bad approach. To me, it's a really, really bad approach. It might work, but if it works, it's not because you are a really, really good job. It's just
I just don't know how you could. I don't know how you could coach without recording anything. You'd have to record something, and even if you're not as scientific and as precise and as perfectionist as you are, you'd still want to know what your athlete's been doing. You'd still want to know the reps, the number of reps, the heart rates, whether it's the times, whether they've improved on last time, because you need to know what your athletes respond to. So you have to record data. Data is an absolute. You have to have it.
And before we get bombed with questions, suggestions, and discussion on the forum about this table, this is just a suggestion. Okay, it's a suggested table from one author. You might find different ones, whereas the rest interval or the work to rest ratio is slightly different. Okay, I'm not saying this is the the most perfect one, or there is only one way of developing endurance by continuous steady state exercises. So there are many different ways where you can develop what you are looking for or what you want to develop.
We've had a question from someone and never asked, would you flick between different intensity zones? And if I was going to do an example of a session I used to do when I was on the track, I'd do a K and then 10 300s and then a K. So I was never someone that just smashed out 1Ks. I'd like to change it up. So I was obviously working between 3 and 4 intensity zones. So I wasn't really being very precise. But it was a session that was that threshold work for the track. Yeah. So yeah, I used to mix it up like that. Yeah. And I think you do. But if you want a dedicated session for something, I think it has to be dedicated to that. Would you agree?
Yeah. I would like to differentiate two things here. Okay. There is the most important one that I consider is what do you do to develop to develop a certain energy system, and then what do you do to train specifically to the demands of the competition. So there are two completely different stories. Okay, so if you want to develop VO2 max, there is only like few ways you can do that. Okay, and the most accurate one or the most effective one that has been published recently is by the famous HIIT. So like short boost of intensities, like 15 seconds, 15-second rest. But you need to make sure this 15 seconds intensity, your athlete stays on some 4, because if it goes above that one, you are not developing VO2 max. You are developing something else. And same, if they are below, then you are not developing. You're working on the anaerobic threshold instead, or endurance. Okay, then you do blocks of 5 minutes, as we explained, like 15 seconds effort, 15 seconds rest, or easy spin if you're doing on the bike. And the longer duration you can be at this intensity without considering the resting time is around 21 minutes. So whatever you're gonna do, and this is a painful one, okay, I can guarantee you. So doing sprints of 15 seconds at some 4 intensity for 16 minutes or over 20 minutes, it hurts, definitely hurts. Yeah. So we're talking about a workout with a warm-up and everything that is an hour and a half. So 21 minutes of effective training at this intensity with the same recovery time. So split in 15 seconds, 30 seconds, even a minute. But if you pretend to develop VO2 max with long efforts, like 6 minutes, it's going to be really, really challenging and demanding for your athletes. So elite athletes might do that one, but if we are working with athletes in development, then whether you want to have the full control over this workout or not is your decision as a coach. If you want to have the full control because you want to make sure this workout is going to be developed properly and run properly, then you do it on a turbo trainer, because there is a control environment. If you want to make it specific and not so accurate to develop VO2 max, okay, just put them on the track and ask them to chase each other for 30 seconds or 1 minute. So then they're going to be at this intensity or above, but you won't have much control over what is going on. So just to summarize it quickly, I mean, that could take us hours to go through this chart, but if you want to develop something, you have to make sure you stay on the desired intensity and intensity zone. If you want to be specific, then you might end up mixing everything up, because as we saw on a competition, this is what you're going to experience. But again, I would like to highlight the difference between the two of them. One is for developing those energy systems. The other one is for getting ready to the specific demands of the competition. Hope now makes sense. So most probably the workout you just explained was aimed to get ready for the race, not to proper develop whatever.
It was closer to race, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Okay.
Still hurt though.
Yeah, definitely. So I really like Roberto Tajuela's approach when it comes to prescribing training, and there's always a discussion about volume. Okay, for those that watch the specialized videos, you're gonna see that pretty much all of the athletes are doing the same training volume per week: 25K, 30K on the swim, was I think over or close to 300 on the bike, and 100K on the run. That was pretty much the same training volume that Javi, John, Simon were even when we're doing up and down. To me, that doesn't say much, because volume, okay, how much training you can put in your week, it's depending on your availability and how much you like to train. But
Volume's simple.
Like what is key to me is the intensity.
Yeah.
Intensity is what makes you get better. Because if we go back to here, so anaerobic threshold and the maximum oxygen consumption, which are two of the, well, and even all the anaerobic zones are the ones that are gonna make you win or lose a race. It's all about intensity, and intensity have to be there. Okay, how much? I'm gonna use my first joker of the day. So it depends. It depends of the athlete you are training, fitness level, how much they can cope with the intensity you are prescribing. Because if you put too much, what's gonna happen? Most probably injury. Yeah. Secondly, could be a overtrain because they're not recovering enough from one session to the other, and okay, you might not injure them. And this is something I like to, that's perhaps personal, but when one of the athletes we are working with gets injured, we have to share part of the blame, because most probably we haven't done everything in our hands, to avoid that. Everything, that is in our hands to avoid that. So we perhaps pushed too much. We did not control the intensity of the workouts as accurate as we should, or well, there could be any other. If your athlete is running on the trails and then just strain an ankle, there's nothing you can do there. So it's not your blame. But if it comes from prescribing too much intensity or too much volume, then definitely. That's not, training is not maths, where, okay, 2 times 2, we know already the result. Here, most of the time, it's a personal bet based on all your knowledge, based on all your experience. But first, the knowledge have to be there, because that's going to be the one that's going to back up your decisions. You prescribe certain training, and then you expect that some other adaptations will happen, but it might not happen. And it's not always, as I say, an accurate science. That's why we need to, the process of training have to be testing, then analyzing the data, taking decisions, prescribing training, control that this training has completed in the way you want it. Do the test again and reevaluate everything, and enter again this decision-making process. It's a non-stop cycle. Okay, perfect. So I'd like you to have a quick look for those that still haven't watched the videos. This is a short extract of Javi's video, and please pay attention to what he says about the intensity.
I'm really focused on the run. I know that the 80% or maybe more of the races you're going to win them on the run, so it's very important to be fast.
Hasta el final, bien, ahí va. Muy buena.
And when I'm training hard, I just do 2 or even 3 sometimes track sessions per week. That's a lot of intensity, and you always have to be careful with the injuries because it could be a bit dangerous, but it's what makes me fast. And yeah, I'm running about 100K per week, but with a lot of intensity.
Okay. So coming back to what we say, intensity is key, is what differentiates. I mean, you're not going to get faster by running slow, don't you, Emma?
Yeah, and it's but it's really, really important to make sure that you do have that base level that your body can handle the intensity. because it's a relentless tiredness that will set in if you go too hard too soon and too much.
Exactly. For the beauty, I think the beauty about triathlon is the three disciplines. Just having the possibility or using the three disciplines to develop all the energy systems.
Yeah.
Because once again, I mean, your body doesn't understand whether you are swimming or running. It just understand there is a demand of energy and this energy needs to be supplied. Help us to use or to develop, different aspects of the ALIS preparation through different ways. Cycling can be used to develop the endurance, and you have less risk of getting injured versus running, so or even swimming. So you can be 3 hours on the bike with very little impact in your body, but you can't be running for 3 hours because I mean you can, but how long is going to take you to recover from this session to the next one?
I could give you one of my theories there, but I won't. It's not very scientific.
Okay, let's just wait. You can share that with me after the webinar, no problem. Otherwise, we're going to create more compassionate discussions. Anyway, so we're going to go through, in order to put that into like specific case study, or let's just going to pretend we have an athlete and how we can interpret the data and what we should be doing. Okay. This again, we just made up all these numbers, so it's none of us numbers. So we watched on week 2 how to run the Montreal track and the University of Montreal track test. Okay, so after that, the last stage completed by our athlete was 20.6 kilometers per hour, which is a pace of 255. So that will be the maximum aerobic velocity pace. And based on a formula, the VO2 max estimated is 72. Okay. Then we know our athlete has a personal best in 5K of 17:30. The reason
Did you
why
make these up?
Second?
Did you make up the bottom 4, or they worked out?
No, it's actually my numbers. No, just
Okay.
kidding. No. I just made them up.
Because they're running too slow for those times, I think.
Yeah. Okay. No, I just made them up. Then what's the reason behind asking for or finding out what's the personal best in this distance in 5K? Because as we discussed it on the FTP test, unless we find out where the anaerobic threshold is, we'll end up relying on the estimations, and the estimations tells you it's around 80 to 85% of the VO2 max, but might be or might not be. In this case, when we work out all the numbers, we found out that his anaerobic threshold, so the race pace, the LT2, the BT2, or whatever you want to name it, it's 83%, okay, of the VO2 max. It's the last number you have on there. All this information is obtained from the University of Montreal track test and from a 5K personal best, which is not much, but gives you a lot. Then, okay, so I forgot I had the arrows. Then we transferred all the data to our unique physiological profile. You can create your own one, just on an Excel spreadsheet. And okay, we see that the scores we're getting on the economy of LT2, so anaerobic threshold, also the velocity of the LT2 and the anaerobic threshold itself are pretty low compared to the VO2 max. So if you were the coach of this athlete, what would you be prescribing starting from the week after the test? VO2 max sets.
Are you asking me?
Want to answer?
No, well, I thought from the last one that their VO2 max and their is outperforming their ability to hold the pace. So I would say endurance. Yeah.
The problem is unless we develop the anaerobic threshold. So let's say we have a phase now, a training block, where based on I don't know, Medvedev book says now we need to develop the VO2 max. Well, the VO2 max of this athlete, I'm not going to say
Pretty
is well
good.
developed because there's still room for improvement, but
Yeah, it's pretty
what is
good compared to
limiting the
everything.
performance is the anaerobic threshold here.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'd rather focus on this area, develop this area, try to get it closer to the VO2 max, and then, because otherwise, let's just put it in this way. So the VO2 max is here. Now the anaerobic threshold is at 83% of the VO2 max. If I push the VO2 max higher, the gap will increase. And therefore, the ability to compete at this intensity will be limited. Okay, so I'd rather push this up and then push the VO2 max higher and then get it closer. But 83 is not a percentage that you should be happy about. Okay, the closer to the VO2 max, the better.
If people are getting confused, if you go back to the last slide, if they can run a 2:55 in the test and then in a race, you know, run at 3:30 pace, there's obviously they're missing that threshold endurance and
exactly exactly. This is
that's the simple stuff you can look at.
If you can go flat out for 6 minutes at 2 or close to, because this is an intensity you can hold for 6 minutes. So you can go under 3 minutes for 6 minutes, but you cannot go close to,
you're blowing out.
Then you have a problem there. So this intensity actually, so this energy system, which is the anaerobic threshold, is not well developed. So you better focus on this area of development if you want your athlete to be competitive. But unless you... Second?
Check the course measurements. Blame the course.
Exactly. So you should be focusing on this intensity zone, okay? So the anaerobic threshold, because this is what actually is limiting the performance of your athlete now. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to change, because definitely will change if you prescribe the right training, and everything just is, as I say, it's organized in a good way. I like to put it in this way. Okay?
But you wouldn't go and do 40 by 10 minutes.
No. Well, I mean, you can do them, and let's just, perhaps I'm going to shoot my own foot here. But anyway, you can do them if your athlete is able to stay in this intensity. When your athlete is running, that's clear. So if you're running, let's say, let's put it in this way. So your athlete is doing sets on the track, 3:30 here, okay? Let's just put it there. In order to get better, then should be running slightly faster than that. So let's say 3:20, perfect? Then you come there and say, now we're gonna do 40 times 10 minutes.
And the face of the athlete will be like that on the screen.
Just right after finding out about the workout, like, what? It's not possible. You are expecting your athlete to run, how many times we say? 40 times, 10 minutes at a pace of 3:20. And here they go. After the first 10 minutes, then you check the pace and it was, okay, 3:25. Good. Your athlete is within the desired intensity or the target intensity zone. The training is working. But as long as the intensity drops, meaning the athlete start running at 3:40, 3:45, 3:30, then you better stop the workout, because it's not going to bring any benefit at all. So it doesn't matter what is written on your training plan. As long as your athlete is not able to cope with intensity, you better stop, because then you move to another energy system and you'll be developing something else. But you're not going to be targeting what you wanted to develop at the beginning of the session. So hope makes sense. Okay, so let's just have a look at...
Do a set of 2400s with a 200-meter active rest, which I ran at race pace, or actually just below that, sort of repping in 69, 70 seconds for the 400s, and then taking about a minute or 50 seconds for the 200. It's just something that's obviously a conditioning at a fairly high pace, and after a long day like this, it absolutely hurts. You know, there's no doubt about it. It's got a mental aspect to it. It's getting dark. and you're getting hungry, and it's really tiring. So somehow that's the one side of it where you really have to, try and focus. The other side is obviously that you're thinking, this is great, I'm out here, the sun is setting, it's getting dark, it's my favorite time of the day to run, because it's just got this unique atmosphere to it, and it's giving me goosebumps almost just to go out there and think that I'm the only one. Everyone else is sitting at dinner, everyone else is maybe doing a stretch, going to bed, and I'm out here hammering myself. And that's what I love doing about the sport. The intensity is really what drives me and what gets me going. Sort of the idea of taking a few guys on to the sprint finish. That's really what makes the Olympic distance so unique, and I just absolutely love it.
So once again, talking about the importance of intensity in our sport. So if instead of doing this set at race pace, which here will be like zone 3, okay, we moved into zone 4, then the goal will be completely different. So we have the same task, different intensity, okay, and different, obviously, training outcome. And unless we keep a track on what the athlete is doing, so we as a coach, we cannot guarantee the adaptations will happen. Okay, so the first one, you can see that's actually one of the workouts I share with you, like for VO2 max development. It's like 15 seconds effort, 15 seconds rest. It's in this case there are 4 blocks there, but we usually do 5 times with 5 minutes rest in between. And you can see that the intensity has been pretty accurate. I mean, some of the sets went above that, but nothing to worry about that. Whereas on the other one, yeah, okay. I don't know how to define that one. But unless we use some tools and resources to find out what the athlete has been doing, then we cannot guarantee that the adaptations, the physiological adaptations we are looking for will happen. It's as simple as difficult as it is. So that's why, and once again, that's a little bit personal, because coming from from university background, I really like to be a little bit scientific and to have a backup of your decisions. So when I see coaches that, even if they are in the working with the elite level, that they say no, we don't look at the numbers, no, we don't that. So then the results of those athletes are just a matter of luck, and perhaps the training group, it's what is making them getting better. And I do believe the job of those coaches is to make sure that athletes don't get injured. But you cannot consider a good coach someone who is not following the principles of coaching.
Yeah, and I think it's important to make sure that you do record things, because sport doesn't always go well, and quite often you need to go back onto what you were doing when things are going badly. And if you've got as much stuff written down as possible, you can get yourself out of some bad situations. And I think that's a really important part of sport, because sport isn't all fun and games out there. I think we all know that.
Definitely. And as we already mentioned at the beginning, when Emma shared what she used to do on the track, there is a way of developing. No. I mean, it's actually, I'm not saying you did it wrong. If had to me, it made sense. What you just shared. It's because there is a moment where we need to develop those energy systems and all those physiological parameters. But then there is another one where we need to be really specific. Okay, so because you're not gonna be racing 20 times 400 meters in a triathlon and ask the other competitors, listen, we have 200 meters now, easy jog rest. So let's see how. So it's not the way it's going to work. But unless you have prescribed the necessary training to properly develop this energy system, you cannot move into this next phase. And this next phase usually happening when the competition is getting closer. So you have a time where you develop those those physiological parameters, or when you develop the energy systems, and then you work a little bit more specific as the season gets closer. So
a lot of times we'll do a pre-race set where we'll do like a hard 50 at the beginning, and then we'll do some threshold stuff, another like up-tempo 50, and then some more threshold stuff to finish.
So it's when Jorgensen sharing pre-race workout where they go 50 meters all out, then some threshold sets. So that's actually what we saw. I think was the first webinar on the swim, when we measured the intensity on the swim based on the stroke cadence.
Yeah.
So the first 50 meters is all out, and then the intensity just drops, picks up again. So that's a specific workout, which is okay. But the base have to be, the basement, they have to be properly developed. Otherwise, you cannot build on. It's slightly different. So more examples of some specific workouts.
Yeah, it's up at 5:15 on Tuesdays. Riding with the triple shot group. It's just the best group of guys. They love to hammer, and it feels a lot like a World Cup race. It's chaos, I think is the word I'm looking for, and it's fun. So we go up to the university, do a couple loops up there, and then we head back down along the waterfront, and the pace just builds and builds and builds, and then the boys start trying to fly off the front. Beacon Hill Park is a special place. It's a really magic place here in Victoria. Mile Zero is right there, Terry Fox statue is right there, and we whip by the Terry Fox statue 6 times, and on the last lap they do a sprint, and I lose every time. Today we're doing a run off the bike, so as the others sprint for glory, I sprint for transition, and 2 loops hard to the park. It's a perfect mile loop, and 2 minutes rest, and then another loop.
Different strategies, just to join a group of cyclists and then practice a transition. So I think that's part of our DNA to be creative and just make use of all the resources available for our own benefits. In this case, Simon, for those that came late to the sport, is a legend. I mean, it's so Olympic medalist, if I'm not wrong. And yeah, it's just being a little bit specific to what you're gonna be doing on race day. Okay. So just to wrap it up, because we've seen there are a lot of questions just popping on the Q&A section. I think it's been well explained and hopefully well understood that the energy systems is not something that you either you have them on or off. So all of them are working at the same time, but what makes one or the other work with more priority, I would say, or with more like have more contribution, is the intensity and the duration of them. Okay, so it needs to be properly understood, and especially how long you need to recover from one burst of energy to properly do another one. Okay, so playing with the intensity of duration is key, but it's also important to make sure you have your athletes working at the desired intensity, because otherwise they'll be developing something else that you might not be targeting at that time. And some time later, when you decide to do the testing and the numbers are not getting better, you wonder, what went wrong. So could be that they are not sticking to the intensity they should be training at. So it's good to do some specific workouts with more people. That's nothing against that approach. And I will add is mandatory and extremely necessary. But if you want to develop something, you better set the elite training zone based on the test results, and you make them stick to them when they are doing this kind of development workouts. Okay. So if you can go through the Q&A.
This is where I come in.
Yeah.
Choose all the easy questions. No. So we've got a question from Ahmed. I've watched the Jan Frodeno video many times. Isn't this too much for a one-day volume for an athlete who only does sprint standard distance races? So that was obviously when Jan was racing, wasn't doing Ironman. But I think that is a good point. And you don't go and have young athletes going and doing 2400s. He was at the back end of his career. So he was obviously moving away from speed. What do you think, Vincent?
Well, first, I don't know, because I was not coaching him at that time. So I don't know the amount of training load. Well, I was not coaching him at that time. I never coached him. So it doesn't mean that I ever... so I don't know the training load Jan was able to handle. So you also need to be in mind that this is a commercial video. Okay, so whether it's a current training day of Jan repeated over time or not,
yeah,
I don't know.
Well,
so
I
me,
can tell you that I did sessions like that, but it was towards the end of my career.
Yeah, so
not when I was developing.
That is, I mean, everything has to be put into the right context. So now you don't have to copy that, this exact video, what he's doing, and try to apply it into your athletes. So it's just first a commercial video. Second is showing and explaining the whys. He's doing that one, and whether it's too much or not. Well, if he gets better and doesn't get injured, might not. If he gets injured or doesn't get better, then it could be too much. So
I would question. Yeah. But I would question more, why would you finish at 8:30 at night? In Australia, you would only run that late if it was a 40-degree day. Yeah. So I'd like to be in bed at 8:30, but you're Spanish.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was in South Africa, so I don't know.
Anyway. Another question is, if you stop a session because an athlete isn't hitting their numbers or their times, and you're doing that every week, I know what you're going to say to this, how are you going to keep improving your athlete?
By prescribing the training load they are able to cope with. As simple as that. So if your athlete is not able to finish every session you are giving to them, you better review what you are giving to them, because it's too much for them. As simple as that.
Yeah. Kevin, he's on my side here. In your athlete example, why are you focusing to develop the anaerobic threshold when their aerobic ability is low? Because remember how I said this endurance?
Yeah.
I think that just shows that there's different ways of doing things.
Yeah, but if I go back, we're not showing here the aerobic threshold or the economy of the aerobic. So the endurance is not shown here at any point. So we are only showing the VO2 max, the velocity, the maximum aerobic velocity, and the anaerobic threshold. So there is no endurance data shown here. So
okay, yeah, Kevin and I are just looking at other stuff.
Okay, just to clarify that one, this is a simplified running profile. Okay, with the one we usually working with has 4 more items. Okay, but you need to do a proper VO2 max with the mask and all kind of stuff. This is all the number you can get out of the University of Montreal test in a 5K personal best. Okay, this is a simplified version of it. That would be my approach. If you have a different approach, go for it. If works for your athlete, then just put the medal on. As simple as that. Yeah. If the way I see training and the way I'll make my bet, I will say my personal bet with this athlete will be to focus on the anaerobic threshold rather than the VO2 max. But that will be my approach. So we might be now, I don't know, 100 plus coaches on the room, and each of us might think, different stuff. Fair enough, as long as your athlete gets better. If it doesn't, your approach was not the right one.
Okay, we're asking, is any formula or method of measuring high volume training of an elite male and female athlete? I think that's personal to the athlete, to the coach, specific.
Trial and error. As long as they don't get injured. If they get injured because of overload, then that was too much. If they don't, but they don't get better, then it's too little. So there are no formulas for that one. Again, it's a personal bet. It's based on all the knowledge you have, based on the athlete you are working with, based on the experiences they also have had, based on even the preferences, because there are some athletes who really struggle on the water and they don't want to do many stuff in there. If it's not affecting their performance, okay, you better focus on something else. So there are no formulas. I mean, I know a lot of coaches spend a lot of time on internet looking for recipes and looking for the miracle sentence that will solve all the questions we have bouncing in there, but there are no such a things. Okay, as trial and error. It's experience what give you what I was too little or too much.
Oh, there's another one on formulas. Oh, back to our big table. The work to rest ratio. There's a confusing section in aerobic capacity. It's 1 to 24. Does that mean 1 minute of rest to 1 minute of work to 24 minutes of rest?
What's it?
Can we go back to the table?
That one? 124.
Here. So if you go into zone 5.
Could be. Could be. I don't know. It could be.
So it could be 20 seconds.
I mean, I'm not the author of this table, so Tudor Bompa should be the one who should answer this question. But it could be. I mean, I've seen sprinters on the track doing 9 seconds or 10 seconds effort, and then resting for 10, 12.
Yeah, I'd get my 2400s done while they just done 2 sprints.
Yeah, but please keep in mind that this is a general table for all kind of disciplines. Okay, it doesn't necessarily needs to be applied for triathletes. So yeah, those are references again. Do not go always for the streams. Okay.
We're running out of time.
Yeah, so sure. So before we wrap this course up, just kindly reminder that we're going to be issuing a certificate for those who have read all the content, watch all the webinars, so the 4 webinars, and completed the following tasks that you have on the screen. So there was a terminology quiz on the pre-course section. Then each week has a quiz based on what has been discussed, said, or assumed, I will say. Yeah. Then week 2, there were 2 additional activities with power profile and training for a specific race. And we're gonna be launching the last quiz on week 4 at the beginning of next week. And you will also requested to fill course feedback, because most probably we're going to be doing the course again, and perhaps as another version. So we're going to be leveling up the content we presented, because obviously it's been, in 4 weeks, we have tried to summarize pretty much 4 years of studies. So it's we did our best. So sorry if we fail or we didn't achieve what we didn't fulfill your expectations, but it's really difficult. Okay, we're gonna be closing the course and all the content by Monday, November 30th. Meaning, for those who haven't gone through all these tasks, you won't be able to get the certificate. Okay, so make sure you just complete everything on time if you want to be awarded. And also, we'd like to thank the entire team. So we are the faces of the webinars, but obviously there is a huge team behind the scenes working tireless every week. Okay, we want to thank them all. Some of them has been active on the forum too. Some of them taking part of the Spanish one. And yeah, nothing much to add from my side. Hopefully this course has helped you to consider a different approach in coaching, and you understand, what the importance physiology has in training. And definitely, if we have teach you something new, I'll be more than happy. If not, apologize. And yeah, hopefully next time we'll do better. So Emma, I don't know if you want to add something else.
Yeah, thanks for joining in and taking part. It's been good to get to know you on the forum, and hopefully we have introduced some ideas and developed your understanding of triathlon a little bit more.
So thank you very much. We'll be contacting you all through the forum. Still, we really thank you for all the questions that have been discussed there, and all the topics and all the valuable information that you shared there. So please keep engaged until the end of the course. And thanks for being with us for the last 4 weeks. And hope to see you soon somewhere.
The races.